Welcome to Sleepy Dark Past, the place where the weirdest, darkest, and sometimes downright ridiculous parts of history are told in a slow, soothing voice, so you can drift off to sleep while quietly thinking, wait, did they really do that? Tonight's story is one that will either give you nightmares or help you sleep faster out of sheer disbelief. We're traveling to the Aztec Empire, a civilization famous for its pyramids, its warriors, and, of course, its absolute obsession with blood. Now, you may think modern beauty standards are extreme people injecting Botox, gluing fake eyelashes heavy enough to create wind resistance, or paying for vampire facials where your own plasma is microneedled into your face. Sounds wild, right? Well, compared to the Aztecs, modern beauty is basically a spa day with cucumber slices and Enya playing in the background. Because the Aztecs, they believed blood, yes, actual human blood was the ultimate beauty treatment. Want to look young? Smear on some fresh sacrifice. Want to stay radiant? Bathe in crimson. Want the gods to notice you? Better hope your stylist today is also a priest with an obsidian knife. If that sounds insane, just wait. Over the next chapters, we'll explore why the Aztecs thought blood was basically liquid Botox, how they harvested its spoiler, vermicelli, who got to enjoy these treatments, what modern science says about bathing in plasma, and why the Spanish conquistadors wrote about it with the same energy as a horror movie review. So, lean back, close your eyes if you like, and prepare to be horrified, amused, and maybe just maybe a little bit impressed by how far humans will go in the pursuit of beauty. And before we go further, don't forget subscribe to Sleepy Dark Past, because if you don't, you'll miss out on the next story, and trust me, the past only gets weirder from here. Now, let's step into the crimson waters of history. The Aztec Empire, around the 15th century, was no small player. Their capital, Tenochtitlan, sat on a lake, shimmering with temples and canals. Spanish conquistadors later described it as more dazzling than European cities of the same era. Imagine Venice, but with more pyramids, more feathers, and way more human sacrifice. In this glittering city, beauty was not optional. It was power. For the Aztecs, to look radiant was to look divine. It wasn't just about vanity, it was proof you had the gods on your side. Beauty is a divine currency. Goddess Ixoquetzal, try saying that 3 times quickly without your tongue giving up, was a patron of beauty, love, and fertility. She was essentially the Aztec Venus, but with more flowers and less seashells. If you wanted her favor, you had to look the part. For men, beauty meant strength and warrior-like presence. For women, it meant youth, fertility, and elegance. And unlike today's beauty standards, which might be achieved with makeup palettes or Instagram filters, Aztec beauty routines sometimes involved, well, blades. They shaped their teeth into decorative patterns. Yes, dental art was a thing. They used obsidian mirrors, volcanic glass polished until you could see your reflection, to check themselves out. Think of it as the original selfie, only creepier, because obsidian mirrors were also thought to be portals to the spirit world. And, of course, there were the pigments. Aztecs loved painting their faces with bright colors made from minerals, plants, and insects. Yes, insects. Crushing bugs for that perfect shade of red was the original cruelty-free debate. But even with all this, one thing remained the ultimate marker of divine beauty: blood. Why blood? To the Aztecs, blood was life itself. They believed the gods had sacrificed their own blood to create the world. Therefore, humans had to return the favor, keep the cosmic engine running by offering blood back. This wasn't symbolic. They genuinely believed that if the sacrifices stopped, the sun might refuse to rise. Forget forgetting to pay your electricity bill. Imagine being told the whole sun depended on your neighbor being sacrificed next Tuesday. So, blood wasn't just religious fuel. It was sacred, magical, and full of cosmic juice. If it could power the sun, surely it could also freshen up your skin, right? This is where the logic takes a sharp left turn into nightmare territory. Because if blood is divine, then smearing it on your body might literally infuse you with godlike qualities, strength, fertility, and yes, beauty. Rituals of self-sacrifice. Before we laugh too hard, let's remember that Aztecs weren't always bathing in other people's blood. Sometimes they offered their own. Common people might perform auto-sacrifice, which sounds like a band name, but really meant pricking yourself and offering a few drops of your own blood. They would pierce their ears, tongues, or even genitals, yes, that too. Then collect the blood to offer the gods. Painful, yes. Unhygienic, absolutely. But it showed devotion, and in their worldview, those tiny drops mattered. The elite, however, they didn't stop at a few drops. They had access to the full deluxe package. The seeds of the blood spa ID here's where beauty entered the picture. Warriors believed that smearing themselves with enemy blood made them stronger. Priests thought it brought them closer to the gods. And noble women were whispered to have used blood as a cosmetic, painting their faces with it, or perhaps even bathing in it, in secret ceremonies. We don't know if full-on bloodbaths happened regularly, or if this was exaggerated by the Spanish conquistadors to make the Aztecs look like horror movie villains. But we do know that the concept of blood as a beauty aid existed in their culture. And honestly, if you'd grown up in a society where blood was holy, and every festival included sacrifices, would you really question it? Imagine being a young Aztec noblewoman, told that a fresh smear of blood would make your cheeks glow with divine radiance. You might think, gross, but okay, pass me the bowl. Our own reflection is easy to scoff, sitting here in the 21st century. But think about modern beauty trends for a moment. People inject botulinum toxin, a literal neurotoxin, into their faces to smooth wrinkles. They burn their skin with acid peels. They swallow collagen powders made from fish scales. Are we really that different? Or do we just package our blood rituals with better lighting and relaxing spa music? And so, the seeds of the Aztec blood spa were planted, a society where beauty was divine. Blood was sacred, and the line between devotion and vanity blurred into crimson. The stage, pyramids, plazas, and panismagi in the heart of Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital. It's festival day. The Great Pyramid looms, what archaeologists call the Templo Mayor. This wasn't just a religious building. It was the Aztec equivalent of both a cathedral and a sports stadium. Thousands gathered in the plaza below, waiting for the main event. The pyramid had twin temples at the top, one for Huitzilopochtli, the god of war and the sun, and one for Tlaloc, the god of rain. Essentially, blood for the sun, blood for the crops. A win-win? Well, not if you were the guy about to be sacrificed. The victims, often prisoners of war, were dragged up hundreds of steps. Already, this was a kind of spectacle. People watched, drums pounded, conch shells blared, and then came the ritual itself. The tools of the Trideth Aztecs didn't use bronze or iron. Those metals weren't common in Mesoamerica. Instead, they used obsidian blades. Obsidian is volcanic glass, sharp enough that even today surgeons sometimes experiment with it because it can create a finer, instant steel dot. So when you hear stone knife, don't picture a clumsy rock. Picture a razor so sharp it can split a hair. Now picture that being driven into your chest. Suddenly, Aztec surgery doesn't sound primitive, it sounds terrifyingly efficient. The altar was a flat stone, called the Cuauhxicalli, meaning eagle vessel. It was more than just a table. It was a cosmic stage where life was cut and offered to the gods. The ritual, step by bloody step, victim would be laid on the altar, chest arched upward. The priest, often painted black and wearing feathered headdress, would plunge the obsidian blade into the chest and slice open the rib cage. Here's the shocking part. This was done with enough speed that the heart, still beating, could be pulled out and held aloft. Priests would raise it toward the sun, sometimes even placing it into a carved stone bowl dedicated to the god. Blood, meanwhile, flowed down the pyramid steps, visible to everyone below. A literal river of life, feeding the gods, terrifying the spectators. And if you believe some legends provided skincare samples for nobles lurking in the shadows, the cleanup crew had happened to all that blood. It didn't just evaporate. Priests caught some of it in containers, ceramic bowls, gourds, or even smeared it directly onto idols. Statues of gods often had dried layers of blood repainted with each new sacrifice. Think of it as divine makeup, but some of it, according to accounts, was reserved. It could be used in smaller rituals, in crops, or here's where our theme kicks in applied to humans for renewal. It wasn't like today's sanitized beauty clinic. No sterile gloves, no clean needles, just warm, sticky blood, which, yes, coagulates quickly. So if you were late to the bloodbath party, you'd basically be smearing on crimson jello. The big festivals, blood on repeat sacrifices weren't one-off events. They were scheduled like holidays. Each month in the Aztec calendar had festivals, many requiring human blood. Take Tlacactibolisti, a festival for Totec, the flayed lord. Victims were killed, then literally skinned. Priests wore the skins as symbols of renewal. Imagine walking through the city and bumping into someone wearing someone else's body, like a cardigan. That's not metaphor, that's history. Or Panquetzalisli, honoring Huitzilopochtli. Here, thousands could be sacrificed in a single season. Spanish witnesses claimed the steps of the pyramid were so slick with blood that priests had trouble walking down without slipping. Yes, slipping. Imagine your workplace hazard form fell on temple stairs due to excessive gore. The beauty treatment opportunity amid all this horror, opportunities appeared. Blood was everywhere, treated as divine fuel. It wasn't much of a leap for nobles to think, if it feeds the sun, surely it can feed my skin. Some accounts again, partly from Spanish chroniclers, partly from oral tradition, suggest that noble women were anointed with blood, a smear across the cheeks, a dab on the arms. Priests might even present bowls of blood for ritual washing. It's hard to know how literal bathing in blood really was. Was it an actual tub, like Hollywood loves to imagine? Probably not. It would take dozens of victims to fill one. More likely, it was symbolic, smearing, painting, maybe washing hands or faces. Still disgusting, still shocking, and still believed to bring beauty. The dark banquet, and then, of course, came the feast. Some sacrifices ended with ritual cannibalism. Flesh was cooked and shared in noble households, eaten not as food, but as sacred communion. Blood might be mixed in the maize or drunk in ceremonial sips. Modern science calls this dangerous. Too much iron leads to hemochromatosis, or iron overload. Basically, your organs slowly rust from the inside. But the Aztecs weren't running clinical trials. They were running theology. And to them, each sip was divine energy. Each smear was beauty itself. The scene to imagine, picture it. Night in Tenochtitlan. The festival is over. Torches flicker. The pyramid still drips red. Priests return with bowls of blood. In a quiet chamber, a noble woman sits as her skin is painted with crimson lines. Outside, the city smells of incense and iron. For her, this is not grotesque. This is not madness. This is devotion and maybe, just maybe, a beauty routine. If the bloody festivals were the public theater of Aztec religion, then the blood beauty rituals were the VIP backstage passes. Not everyone got to smear themselves in warm crimson and call it a skincare routine. No, this was reserved for a select few: priests, nobles, warriors, and the occasional terrified rumor about immortals lurking in temples. So let's pull back the curtain on the blood elite. The priests, full-time employees of gore first. The priests, these men didn't just dabble in blood, they were practically marinated in it. Their job was to perform sacrifices day in, day out. Chroniclers described them as pale, gaunt, their long hair clumped together with dry gore. Imagine never washing your work uniform, except your work uniform is other people's fluids. And here's where the whispers begin. Some Spaniards wrote that priests immersed themselves in collected blood, not for hygiene obviously, but for transformation and attempt to cross the line between human and divine. Was this true? Hard to prove. It might have been propaganda after all. They literally bathe in blood, makes your enemy look extra evil. But given how central blood was to Aztec spirituality, is it really so far-fetched that a few priests might have tried it? After all, if your gods demand rivers of blood, why not splash around a little? The warriors, beauty by brutality next. The warriors. In Aztec society, capturing enemies alive was more valuable than killing them outright. Dead men don't make good sacrifices. So a warrior's prestige came from how many captives he delivered for sacrifice. As a reward, warriors sometimes received the honor of blood anointment. They would smear enemy blood on their faces or arms, believing it granted strength. Think of it as the original pre-workout supplement, except instead of a protein shake, it's Kevin from the rival tribe. There are even hints that certain champions were allowed more elaborate rituals, perhaps bathing their wounds or bodies in blood as a form of sacred rejuvenation. Today we call it athlete recovery. They called it thanks for letting me dunk your heart on the temple steps. The noble women. Crimson Cosmetics know for the most unsettling and fascinating rumors. The noble women. Spanish accounts, always eager for scandal, claim that high-born Aztec women used sacrificial blood as makeup, a smear on the cheeks for radiance, a dab on the lips for vitality, a ritual face mask, though definitely not spa-approved. Picture this, a palace chamber lit by oil lamps. A priest enters with a bowl of fresh blood. A young noblewoman sits, her skin pale in the glow. He dips his fingers, then traces crimson lines across her face. Outside, drums still echo from the sacrifice. Inside, silence. Was this beauty? Was it devotion? Or was it both, tangled so tightly that no one could tell the difference? And remember, in a society where gods demanded blood, it wasn't considered grotesque. It was sacred. The line between religion and fashion blurred into one sticky red smear. The legends of immortality off course. Once you start smearing yourself with blood, rumors will follow. Stories circulated of nobles who never seemed to age, priests who looked youthful into old age, warriors who recovered from wounds too quickly. The whispers said they bathe in blood. They steal life from others. They cheat death. Did people believe it? Some did. Because in Aztec cosmology, blood was literally the fuel of the universe. If it kept the sun alive, why couldn't it keep a person young? Historians debate whether these stories were Aztec myths or Spanish exaggerations. But the very fact that such rumors existed tells us something important. People associated blood, not only with survival, but with vitality, beauty, even immortality. Behind closed doors, what we know for certain is this. Not all rituals were public. Some sacrifices happened behind the thick stone walls of temples, away from common eyes. And secrecy breeds imagination. Did priests really immerse themselves in vats of blood? Did noble women actually wash their faces with it? Or did a few symbolic smears grow into legends of full crimson baths? We may never know. Archaeology can uncover bones, temples, and murals. But blood leaves no fossil. Well, we're left with our shadows, whispers, and the eerie possibility that in some dim chamber, lit by flickering torches, an Aztec elite truly believed they had found the fountain of youth not in water, but in blood. The irony of the elite, here's the kicker. If they really did bathe in blood, science tells us it would have been disastrous. Blood carries pathogens. Smearing it on your skin risks infection. Drinking it risks iron overload, damaging your organs. So while noble women believed they were glowing, they may have been courting disease. While priests thought they were becoming divine, they were likely becoming pale and sickly. It's almost poetic in a darkly comic way. The elite sought eternal youth, but their beauty treatments probably shortened their lives. A scene to drift on. Imagine yourself now, half asleep, picturing the strange world of the blood elite, priests draped in gore, warriors painted in crimson, noble women anointed with sacrifice. Outside, the city buzzes with life. Inside, the chambers smell of incense and iron. For them, it was not grotesque. It was devotion. For us, it is horror. And yet, beneath the shock, there is something familiar, the eternal human hunger to stay young, to stay beautiful, to stay alive just a little longer. By now, you might be wondering, alright, Aztecs love blood, but did it actually work? Could a crimson face mask really give you that goddess glow? Or was it just the 15th century version of TikTok skincare hacks? Let's take a slow walk through the science. And yes, we'll keep the mood sleepy, but with enough detail to make you raise an eyebrow and mutter, oh, that's nasty. Blood, the technical breakdown of the Aztecs, blood was life itself. To us, Blood is, well, still life, but with more Latin terminology. Blood is made up of red blood cells, erythrocytes, tiny discs carrying oxygen, thanks to a protein called hemoglobin. Without them, you suffocate. With too many, you get sticky blood and maybe a stroke. White blood cells, leukocytes, your immune army. They attack bacteria, viruses, and basically anything suspicious. Platelets, thrombocytes, little fragments that clot wounds. They're the duct tape of your circulatory system. Plasma, the pale yellow liquid holding everything together: water, proteins, salts, hormones, glucose, even waste. Think of plasma as the Uber driver carrying all the passengers. So yes, blood is magical in a survival sense. But if you pour it on your face, all you're really doing is giving bacteria a buffet. The smear illusion, let's be fair. Smearing blood on skin could give a temporary glow. The iron in hemoglobin is bright red when oxygenated, so it looks dramatic under torchlight. For a noble woman painted with sacrificial blood, her cheeks would appear flushed, her lips vivid, her skin radiant. In other words, an Aztec noblewoman doing a blood mask might have looked fabulous for about 20 minutes. Then the blood would dry, turn brown, start to smell metallic, and attract flies. Imagine being glamorous 1 minute and a mosquito magnet the next. Drinking blood, the health disaster. Some warriors and priests took it further. They drank blood. Why? Because if blood powers the sun, surely it powers you too. Science says, nope, humans can't metabolize hemoglobin properly. A sip or two might not kill you, but drink regularly and you'll get iron overload, known medically as hemochromatosis. This condition basically means your organs get stuffed with iron like rusty sponges, leading to liver damage, heart failure, diabetes, and ironically, fatigue. So while the warrior thought he was absorbing courage, his liver was whispering, buddy, I'm dying here. Infection. The silent curse of fear is also the small matter of disease. Blood is a superhighway for pathogens. Without microscopes or sterilization, the Aztecs had no idea they were rubbing or drinking viruses, bacteria, and parasites. Imagine a priest smearing blood across his face, unknowingly applying hepatitis, or a warrior sipping blood, unknowingly swallowing parasites. Ancient history had no vaccines, no antibiotics. Their beauty treatments may have carried hidden curses. So while the myths speak of vitality, the reality was more likely fever, infection, and early death. Not exactly the glowing skincare routine they were promised. Modern echoes, the vampire facial, and yet, fast forward to today, and guess what? We're still putting blood on our faces. The so-called vampire facial is a trendy cosmetic procedure where doctors draw your own blood, spin it in a centrifuge to isolate platelet-rich plasma (PRP), and then inject or microneedle it into your skin. The idea is that growth factors in plasma stimulate healing and collagen production, making your skin smoother. Important difference. It's your own blood, sterile, processed by medical equipment, not Kevin from the sacrificial altar. So, less risk of infection, more chance of Instagram posts. Still, think about it. The Aztecs smeared blood for radiance. We inject blood for radiance. Different technology, same obsession. Somewhere, an Aztec priest is probably laughing. See, we told you blood works. The placebo effect. Belief is beauty. Here's a fascinating angle. Maybe it didn't matter whether blood actually worked. Belief itself has power. If a noble woman truly believed the goddess blessed her when she wore sacrificial blood, she would carry herself with more confidence, more poise. Confidence can be beautiful. Likewise, warriors smeared in blood believed they were strong. That belief alone might have given them courage in battle. In psychology, this is called the placebo effect, when your mind convinces your body something is working, even if the treatment is biologically useless. For the Aztecs, blood was the ultimate placebo, turbocharged with divine fear. The irony of science. So, what's the verdict? Did Aztec blood beauty work? Biologically, not really. In fact, it was dangerous. But symbolically, psychologically, spiritually, absolutely. And here's the delicious irony. Modern science actually confirms that blood has potential, not smeared or swallowed, but used properly through transfusions, plasma therapies, even stem cells. So the Aztecs weren't entirely wrong. They just lacked microscopes, sterilization, and a good dermatologist. The comedy of comparison's almost funny in a dark way. We laugh at Aztecs smearing sacrifice blood, but then we pay thousands for chemical peels, botulinum toxin, and vampire facials. They wore feathers and obsidian jewelry. We wear Spanx and lead masks. Different products, same desperation, history, it seems, is one long skincare aisle. A whisper before the indanso. Science strips away the myth. The Aztec blood spa was not fountain of youth, it was fountain of infection. Not eternal beauty, but temporary illusion. Yet the story is sticky, like dried blood on temple stone, because it speaks to something eternal in us, the hunger to resist time, the willingness to try anything, no matter how strange, no matter how grotesque. And that is the real truth behind the Aztec blood rituals. If the first 4 parts were the story of what the Aztecs did with blood, then this last part is the story of what we do with that memory. Because obsession doesn't just vanish, it lingers, stains, and sometimes mutates into new forms. The fall of Tenochtitlan set the scene. 1519, Hernan Cortez and his conquistadors arrive in Mexico with shiny steel, strange animals called horses, and a kind of arrogance only Europeans in the 16th century could pull off. The Aztecs, meanwhile, had obsidian blades sharp enough to shave atoms, massive temples, and an entire empire fueled by faith and fear. But they also had enemies. Rival tribes who were tired of being on the Aztec sacrifice schedule quickly joined the Spaniards. By 1521, after battles, betrayals, and a generous helping of smallpox, the deadliest gift Europe ever sent, Tenochtitlan fell. The great temples were demolished, the rituals silenced. The Spanish wrote the history books, and boy, did they lean hard on the gore, the bloody reputation for centuries. The Aztecs were remembered less for their poetry, art, or floating gardens, and more for their sacrifices. Europeans loved to portray them as savages, demon worshippers, literal monsters. Did you hear? Whispered friars in Spain. They bathe in blood. Disgusting, replied nobles at dinner parties, while simultaneously wearing lead-based makeup that slowly poisoned them. See the irony? Everyone has their weird beauty hacks. The Aztecs just happened to pick the one most likely to horrify future historians. The stain that never washes out. Funny thing about history is that gore sticks better than glory. The Aztecs built incredible aqueducts, developed advanced medicine, and even had mandatory education. But what do we remember? The blood. Always the blood dot. It's like someone throws an amazing party with great food, music, and dancing, but one guest sets the couch on fire. Years later, you don't remember the salsa. You remember the flames. That's the Aztec Empire in Western memory, a giant crimson couch fire. Modern parallels, we're still obsessed. And here's the punchline, we mock the Aztecs, but we're still doing blood-based beauty rituals. Vampire facials, pay hundreds to have your own blood spun in a centrifuge and jabbed back into your skin. Stem cell therapy, not quite blood, but equally hyped as eternal youth in a syringe. Collagen supplements, essentially powdered animal parts marketed as beauty dust. Aztecs smeared blood. We inject plasma. They prayed to gods for eternal youth. We prayed to dermatologists and Instagram filters. Different rituals, same desperation. Honestly, if an Aztec priest time traveled to a Beverly Hills med spa, he'd probably nod approvingly and say, yes, you finally perfected it. Respect. The universal hunger for beauty, that's the legacy. The obsession never left us. It just changed costumes. Beauty has always been a currency. In Aztec courts, glowing skin meant divine favor. In today's world, glowing skin means more likes on social media. And isn't that basically the same thing? Validation from an invisible audience, whether it's gods or followers? The dark lesson, but there's another lesson. The Aztecs sacrificed thousands to keep their empire alive, believing beauty and blood would hold back death. And yet, Their empire collapsed in less than a decade once the Spanish arrived. No amount of blood masks could stop steel, disease, and colonization. Beauty built on cruelty cannot last. And maybe that's the real whisper from history. You can chase eternal youth, but time always wins. Whether you're a noble woman with a bowl of blood or a modern influencer with a fridge full of serums, the ending is the same. Final scene to drift on. Picture it one last time. The Great Pyramid. Torches flickering, drums echoing into the night. A priest holds up a heart, blood cascading down the stone steps. Somewhere in a palace chamber, a noble woman dabs crimson onto her cheeks, convinced she is radiant. Centuries later, a woman in Los Angeles leans back as a doctor injects her with her own plasma, convinced she is radiant. The past is never gone. It just wears new makeup. You have been listening to Sleepy Dark Past. Tonight, we uncover the bloody beauty secrets of the Aztec Empire's shocking, grotesque, and yet strangely familiar. If this journey has stirred your curiosity, or at least distracted you long enough to make your eyelids heavy, then subscribe to Sleepy Dark Past. There are many more shadows waiting. Cursed Egyptian cosmetics, Roman bathhouse disasters, medieval medical miracles. Until next time, let the crimson fade to black. Let the past whisper you to sleep. Good night.